What would you do if a dog started barking frantically at a coffin during a funeral, refusing to stop no matter what anyone said? Most people would assume it's just grief, right? But what if I told you that this dog was trying to reveal a secret so incredible, so impossible, that it would leave an entire room of mourners, questioning everything they thought they knew about life and death? This isn't just another heartwarming animal story. This is about loyalty that transcends the grave, instincts that defy explanation, and a discovery that proves sometimes the most unbelievable miracles happen when we least expect them. The scene was St. Michael's Chapel on a gray Tuesday morning. Hundreds of people had gathered to pay their final respects to Officer Daniel Granger, a decorated police hero who had given his life in the line of duty. The air was heavy with grief, filled with the quiet sobs of family, friends, and fellow officers whose lives Daniel had touched. But there was one mourner who couldn't sit still. At the foot of the polished mahogany casket sat Rex, Daniel's German Shepherd canine partner. He wore his official black vest with police emblazoned across the side, his badge gleaming even in the dim chapel light. Everyone expected him to be sad, confused maybe, wondering where his partner had gone. At first, Rex did exactly what you'd expect. He whined softly, the kind of heartbroken sound that makes your chest tighten with sympathy. People dabbed at their eyes, thinking how even the dog understood the tragedy of losing someone so young, so vital. But then something changed. Rex stood up abruptly, his ears snapping to attention like radar dishes. His entire body went rigid as his amber eyes locked onto the casket with an intensity that made people in the front row shift uncomfortably. His tail stiffened into a straight line, and a deep, rumbling growl began building in his chest. Then came the barking. Sharp, urgent, desperate. Not the mournful cry of a grieving pet, but something else entirely. Something that made every person in that chapel turn around with confusion etched across their faces. "What's wrong with him?" someone whispered. Rex wasn't just barking at the air or at the crowd. He was barking directly at the coffin, his nose pointed like an arrow toward the polished wood. Officer Martinez, one of Daniel's closest colleagues, tried to calm him down with gentle words and a reassuring hand on his neck. But Rex wasn't having it. Instead of settling down, he lunged toward the casket, his powerful paws scraping against the wood, as if he was trying to claw his way inside. The sound echoed through the chapel like fingernails on a chalkboard. Now here's where things get interesting. The veteran officers in the crowd began exchanging meaningful glances. They'd worked with canine units before, and knew the difference between emotional distress and operational alertness. And what they were seeing from Rex wasn't panic or grief, it was focus. It's a kind of laser-sharp intensity a working dog only shows when he's detected something important. Officer Bryant, who had trained with Daniel and Rex for 3 years, stood up from his pew. His cop instincts were screaming that something wasn't right. He walked over and knelt beside Rex, studying the dog's behavior with the trained eye of someone who understood canine body language. "Easy, boy," Bryant said softly, placing a steady hand on Rex's shoulders. "What is it? What do you smell?" Rex stopped barking for just a moment, looked Bryant directly in the eyes, then barked once more. But this time, he did something that made Bryant's blood run cold. Rex stopped barking and started pacing in tight circles around the casket, whining and sniffing along the edges like he was following a scent trail. He kept returning to the same spot at the base of the coffin, pawing at the wood with increasing desperation. That's when Bryant heard it. Something so faint, he almost missed it over the rustling of clothes and whispered conversations, sound coming from inside the casket. A tiny, muffled cry. Bryant's face went white as sheet. He looked up at the funeral director, a man named Henderson, who had been conducting services for 30 years and had never seen anything like this. "Open it," Bryant said, his voice cutting through the chapel like a blade. Gasps rippled through the mourners like waves. Henderson stammered something about protocols and procedures, but Bryant's voice grew firm with authority. "I said open the casket, now." Rex growled again, pressing his nose against the lid, as if he could somehow push it open himself. The room fell so silent you could hear people's heartbeats as Henderson's trembling hands reached for the latches. The lid creaked open with a sound that seemed to echo for eternity, and there nestled beneath Daniel's folded hands. Hidden in the crisp folds of his dress uniform was something that defied every law of logic and reason. A tiny, squirming newborn puppy, alive. Nobody moved, Nobody breathed. The air inside that chapel became thick with disbelief as every pair of eyes locked onto the impossible sight before them. The puppy was trembling, no bigger than a man's hand, its fur still damp, its blind eyes searching desperately for warmth and comfort. Rex's entire demeanor shifted in an instant. The frantic barking stopped. The desperate pawing ceased. Instead, he let out a soft, gentle whimper and wagged his tail with the cautious joy of a father meeting his child for the first time. His posture changed from panic to protection, from alarm to pure, instinctive love. "How?" someone whispered from the back of the chapel. "How is this even possible?" Father McKenna, who had been conducting funerals for 40 years, crossed himself and took a step back. His hands were shaking as he tried to process what he was witnessing. Officer Bryant, fighting to steady his own trembling hands, carefully reached into the casket and scooped the fragile pup into his palms. As he lifted the tiny creature, something slipped from beneath Daniel's jacket and fluttered to the floor. A folded piece of paper with Daniel's handwriting on the outside. With curiosity overriding his shock, Bryant picked up the note. Written in Daniel's familiar scrawl were 4 words that made his heart skip a beat. "If anything happens to me." What does it say? "Amanda, Daniel's widow," asked from the front row, her voice barely above a whisper. Bryant unfolded the letter with fingers that wouldn't stop shaking. The room had gone completely silent. No more sniffles, no more whispered prayers. Every person in that chapel leaned forward, desperate to understand the mystery that was unfolding before their eyes. Bryant cleared his throat and began reading Daniel's final message. "If you're reading this, it means I didn't make it home. But if Rex is still with you, and if by some miracle she made it too, then please know this wasn't an accident." Gasps echoed through the room. Even Father McKenna stepped closer, stunned by Daniel's foresight. Bryant continued, "I knew she was coming. I kept it a secret because I didn't want anyone to worry or try to stop me from doing what needed to be done. Rex and I, we've always understood each other in ways most people can't comprehend." The officer paused, his voice breaking with emotion. "She was born the night I went missing, cold and alone in that warehouse. Rex never left my side, not even when he could have run to safety. He stayed. He guarded both of us. And when I realized I wasn't going to make it, I only hoped that someone would be smart enough to listen when Rex tried to tell them." The chapel erupted in quiet sobs. The puzzle pieces were finally falling into place. Rex's barking hadn't been grief at all. It had been a message, a final mission, a desperate attempt to save a life that his partner had died protecting. Daniel's last act hadn't been about himself. It had been about ensuring that this tiny, helpless creature would be found, would be loved, would survive. And Rex had made sure that mission was completed. Later that evening, as golden sunlight streamed through the windows of the police station's K9 unit, the puppy lay wrapped in a soft blanket inside a makeshift crib. Dr. Sarah Chen, a veterinarian who had attended the funeral, examined the tiny patient and delivered the news everyone was praying for. Despite the cold, the dehydration, and everything she's been through, Dr. Chen said with tears in her eyes, "She's going to be just fine. It's nothing short of miraculous." Rex sat quietly beside the crib, his usual military stiffness replaced by a gentle protectiveness that no one had ever seen in him before. Officers walked by throughout the evening, some stopping just to sit beside him in comfortable silence. This wasn't just a rescue. It felt sacred. Amanda arrived just as the sun was setting, still clutching Daniel's letter in her hands. She knelt beside Rex and let her tears fall freely. "He knew," she whispered, stroking the loyal dog's head. "He knew she would need you." Rex leaned into her touch, his eyes soft and calm for the first time since the funeral. Amanda looked down at the sleeping puppy, her voice trembling with emotion. She'll grow up knowing exactly who her father was and understanding that the dog who saved her life loved her before she even opened her eyes. Officer Bryant stood nearby, watching this incredible scene unfold. "He never stopped protecting," he said quietly. "Even in death, Daniel was still thinking about others." The department made a unanimous decision that night. The puppy would go home with Amanda and Rex. She would grow up surrounded by love, the living piece of her father watching over her every day. And Rex, he hadn't just lost his partner. He had found his new purpose. See, Rex hadn't barked out of fear or confusion. He barked because he understood something the rest of us had forgotten. That love doesn't end when life does. That loyalty transcends death. Sometimes the most important missions are the ones nobody sees coming. This incredible story reminds us that heroes come in all shapes and sizes, and sometimes they have 4 legs and a badge. If this touched your heart the way it touched mine, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to believe in miracles today. Drop a comment and tell me, what is the most incredible act of animal loyalty you've ever witnessed? And don't forget to subscribe, because stories like this prove that the most amazing things happen when we be brave enough to listen to those who cut and speak our language, but understand our hearts better than we do ourselves. Until next time, keep your eyes open for everyday miracles. They're happening all around us. We just have to be willing to see them.